Let's try that again. What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Joe Hatagwa. I'm a Sierra Leonean American who just spent the last 4 years living in West Africa. And if you want to know what I regret most about moving back to America, then this is the video for you. All right. Welcome back to Pan-African Perspectives, where we dive into the real-life experiences of visiting, moving, and even investing on the continent of Africa. We talk about buying land. We talk about all the things that it requires to move Africa to its rightful place on the world stage. Our mission is to support an independent Africa and empower African people on the continent or in the diaspora. So that means whether you're currently in Africa, you've recently migrated, your ancestors were trafficked during the transatlantic slave trade, or if you consider yourself a foundational Black American, whatever that looks like for you, this live stream is for you. Again, I'm Joe Hatagwa. I'm your host and the founder of Authentic African, where our goal is to do all of those things on a daily basis. This live stream addresses those things as well. So each week I'll share my experiences living, traveling, and investing on the continent of Africa. From time to time, I'll also be interviewing others who've made the move to the continent, offering their insights and their stories. So stay tuned as we talk about the issues affecting us and the people who we care about most on the continent. So with that, can you guys hear me? Let me know if you guys can hear me. I just want to know if you can hear me. I saw that Sierra Leone's killing it, said they couldn't hear me, but can you hear me now? I know my mute was on. I muted myself, so that's my fault. But can you guys hear me? Give me a thumbs up and let me know where you guys are watching from. Before we get into this, I want to know where you guys are watching from and if you can hear me. So let me know if you can hear me and where you guys are watching from. Like I said, just give me a thumbs up to let me know that you can hear me. Okay, so it looks like on Facebook, Joe Karoma says you can hear me. So that's cool. So we're going to go forward then. It sounds like you guys got sound. I know there's a little bit of a delay. So let's give it a chance for people to, okay. Joe Karoma said, yes, so. Joe, what's up? So Joe can hear me. Okay, cool. So, so let's get right into it. You know, something that was interesting to me, that I thought was really interesting is Idris Elba recently said he's going to be moving to the continent of Africa. So I wanted to address this first as part of my discussion about what I regret. Because there's some interesting things here in this one particular article I read from the BBC. So I'm going to react to that and then give you my thoughts on what I regret, because there's some correlation. So I thought I could start with that. So first of all, they just entitled it "Why I'm Planning to Move to Africa." You know what? For a little bit of you know, for continuity here, so you guys can see what I'm looking at, let me share my screen. So this article was in the BBC. It's from yesterday. And so, well, maybe not yesterday, but recently. If I refresh it, it may not say 19 hours ago, 6 days ago, right? So it's from last week. And so British actor Idris Elba told BBC that he would relocate to Africa within the next decade as part of his plans to support the continent's movie industry. The 52-year-old star of the hit series The Wire is behind nascent projects to build a film studio in Tanzania, or Zanzibar, or Tanzania, it depends on who you are and how you'd like to pronounce it, as well as in Accra as well. Not only that, as you guys know, he's working on Chevreau Island, the Chevreau Island project in Chevreau Island, Sierra Leone. So he's born in London. His mother is Ghanaian. His father was Sierra Leonean. Many people don't realize that his father was Sierra Leonean, but the even reason why he's even working on Chevreau Island is because he promised his father, before his father passed away, that he would do something in Sierra Leone. So he wants to leverage his star power to back its burgeoning film business. As he says, it's vital that Africans get there to tell their own stories. I would certainly consider settling down here, not even consider it's going to happen, he said in an interview on the sidelines of an industry meeting in Accra. I think I'll move in the next 5-10 years, God willing. I'm here to bolster the film industry. That's a 10-year process. I won't be able to do that from overseas. I need to be in country on the continent. But the spirit of Pan-Africanism, he will not commit to living in a specific place. So in the spirit of Pan-Africanism, I'm going to live in Accra. I'm going to live in Freetown, Sierra Leone. I'm going to live in Zanzibar. I'm going to try and go where they're telling stories that's really important. One goal he does have is to make a film studio in Accra one day. So there's much more to this article. But what I thought was interesting is the fact that he said it's a 10-year project and that this is not something that he can do from a distance. And let me kind of take you guys back to when I decided to move to the continent of Africa, specifically Accra, Ghana. So and you know, I talked about this story a little bit in many different versions of it. But I think this encapsulates a lot of things, considering, you know, how I see things today. So, you know, I was told that same thing that he's been talking about, right? Is that, you know, you need to be on the continent if you want to be able to make something happen. You need to be there in the mix to know culture and things on the ground, how things are moving, what's working, what's not working, etc. Now, the difference, well, there are many differences between Idris Elba and especially who I was at the time that I was planning to move. Namely, he has a financial backing to be able to do whatever he wants when he moves to the continent. He also not only can live off of his own income that he has outside of the continent, but he will be able to partner with people on the continent because of his status, right? So he'll be able to generate revenue on the continent as well. He'll be able to immediately purchase and rent properties if he wants to. There are many different things that he can do once that information is made available to him. And I'm sure he's already been talking about these things with many different people. So there are different ways that he can generate income immediately. You know, one of the things I did not do was take that into consideration. I had the arrogant belief that I was going to move to Ghana and it was all going to be easy. And in wherever I moved, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Nigeria, I'd be a top candidate in the career field that I come from. And, you know, one of the things that I found very quickly is that is not the case. You know, I would say most of the continent of Africa, in terms of these highly specialized skills, folks are very well educated, and they also have the local context to be able to be better than you at that job. For example, if you are in sales and you want to go pitch an advertiser to advertise on a website that you work for, like I did, I worked for an e-commerce store. What I found was that, like, you know, there were many other people who, even though they only had 5 years experience selling, they had 5 years experience selling in that Ghanaian market, which I did not have. And I struggled for 9 months before I turned things around. You know, I got to the company, they had done $300 the previous month in revenue, which is crazy to think. Was it $3,000? Whatever the number was, I think it was $3,000. Let me give them some more credit. By the time I left, our best month was $70,000. Now, that's such a small amount of money. It was $80,000, $70,000 to $80,000. That's a small amount of money considering how much more I had been operating within in other markets. But for that particular company, that was good, relatively good for that time period. And considering me not speaking Tree and not having a relationship with anybody who lived in Ghana prior to moving to Ghana, so it was all brand new to me. And so that was a very difficult transition. And so I went, like, you know, I probably had about, what was it, about $20,000 in savings when I left and I went to the continent of Africa. And I knew I was going to have this job, which was going to pay me about $30,000. And I just thought, you know, this will be enough because I'll get some other consulting gigs. And there were so many things that I didn't take into consideration. I didn't think about this thing. First of all, is that the consulting gigs that I have require relationships. Change to my headphones since there's some background noise. It requires relationships. And those relationships here in the United States started to fade the longer I was gone. And so that was one piece that I did not take into consideration when I decided that I was going to make the move. Another thing that I didn't take into consideration was the fact that these are cash economies generally in West Africa, right? So I was so used to living off of credit cards when I didn't have the cash at that moment, and I would just pay off the credit card later. That I would just use credit cards to pay for a ton of different things I did not have cash for at the time. Well, in many instances you can use credit cards, but in many other instances you cannot. And so, like for instance, paying your rent, you got to wire the money to your landlord. And although I paid rent with credit card before, actually through a payment portal with a company, with a rental company that I had when I lived in Los Angeles, I realized that that was not an option for me. And so, there were so many things that I was unaware of. And that's part of the reason why this platform was created, right? Was to help people get a better understanding of the things that you need to learn or to know before you make such a drastic move and a change like that. So I give you that background to give you this. Prior to quitting my job in January of 2020, I had some consulting gigs, full time income, and I had equity in a company that was acquired. And so I had gotten a lump sum of cash in 2019, upwards of $70,000. Okay, we'll put it that way. It was upwards of $70,000, and I squandered all of it. I did invest in buying some land, 2019, starting a business, and so I did buy some land in Sierra Leone with some of that money. I did also, you know, um, make other investments in the stock market and things like that, which I ended up emptying all that out later on once I was on the continent and needing cash. But I had I known then what I know now, right? Like, I mean, with that $70,000 in cash in 2019, I could have bought, you know, 5 town lots in certain areas in Freetown, or I could have bought a town lot or two in Accra, Ghana, in East Legon, or even East Legon Hills. And the reason why I bring up those specific number examples and those specific details is because I don't want you guys to have the same regrets that I had. There were so many moments where I would look at things and I would see somebody selling land for $20,000, and I'm like, oh my God, 20,000 for all of that land, and I had that money and I spent it. And at the time that I had heard about it, I was making $30,000 and I had 20,000 in the bank, but I couldn't put all that money into that. I needed that just in case emergencies came up. And within that year, that 20,000 was gone anyway, because I was used to living on much more. And paying my rent up front, you got to pay it cash, right? So I was paying, up front upwards of $10,000, et cetera, in rent payments, right? Because I pay a year up front, or I was paying a year up front. And so, those were all things that I wish I knew before I had gone to the continent. And I wish I had knew while I had all that in that cash flow. And so when I talk to people now who have significant levels of cash flow, who maybe their company has had an exit, or they got a really big bonus check, or whatever that might be, I'm always trying to encourage people to try your best to buy land as soon as possible. The price is going way up. I mean, we're now 5 years removed from the uh, what I was really looking at, purchasing. And the other thing that I'll say is, at that time I was so ignorant to what was going on. I was looking at houses that were $400,000, and I was thinking, okay, how can I put the money together to get a $400,000 house? How can I get money together to get this $700,000 house? Well, I didn't realize they were overpriced, and I was never going to make my money back renting those places. I could have bought land and built for myself, and made my money back far sooner, and had far more equity in something, had I followed that process. But I had no knowledge, and so that's a big part of this. And so the reason why I named this what I regret is because I want to go back to those times where I'm sitting down either looking online at VSL, the website in Sierra Leone that shows sometimes there's some land available, or I'll hear a conversation. Somebody told me for $20,000 there was prime land available in Sierra Leone on the beach. And at that time that it was available, I had $20,000 to spare and plenty of other money left in the bank. And that right now could have been land that I could either build on or resold for probably 4 times the amount of money it cost at that time, considering all the buildings that are going up around the land now and how much it's worth now. And so these are all things that I want everybody to consider, right? A lot of people who are watching this are thinking about whether or not they should move to the continent of Africa, right? And they're wondering, you know, what do they need to take into consideration? Or before they go, what are some of the things they should think about? And so let me first say this. I think before you move full time, you should do what a few people have been talking about, right? If you have the option, and that is you should come back and forth a few times, many times as possible, and stay extended periods of time. So if you can come for the month of December, like maybe you have a slow month at work, you're a salaried worker, or you can work remotely for a little while, I would say come, for a full month. Now, I only say December because December has Christmas and New Year, so that's a whole week, sometimes 2 weeks that people take off, so it's a little bit easier. It's also good to come in like the off-peak season, so just before the rainy season, so like, sometime between January and May, you may want to come here, even maybe during the rainy season, to just get a better feel for what it's like in the off-peak season. And also, it's a lot easier to meet with some of the people who you'd want to meet with and get to know during that time because they're less busy and they're less inclined to be just partying. But then again, if you're in December, you might run into them at a party if you're here in December. So, some of those things I think are going to be really important. Um, the reason why I read that Idris Elba article is because articles like that get everybody excited, right? And everybody's like, "Yeah, I want to do it too." And you always have to think about the circumstances of the person who's making the decision to make that move. One of my peer mentors who was like, "You need to just move," and he was ultimately right. I should have just had other preparations in place and other things in place before I did it. But he moved as a result of working for a company that was paying him exceptionally well. And he was already living in the UK, and they moved him to Lagos, Nigeria. And in Nigeria, he was making the same salary he was making in the UK, which was more than what he was making in the United States. And we're talking about, multiple six figures, right? So when he moved to Lagos, he didn't feel the challenges that many people might feel when moving to a city like Lagos or when moving to Accra or to Freetown. Now they all have their differences, and these are all things that I think can be overcome. Right? I think Accra has the smoothest transition in terms of it has all your creature comforts, the aesthetic, and it's quiet and slow, right? And so, when I say quiet and slow, I'm just saying comparatively speaking to like Freetown and Lagos or like a New York City, right? Because New York is, like a loud city, and that's where I had originally been living for quite, the majority of my adult life. And so for me, Accra was like the smoothest transition. However, in terms of opportunities, Lagos has many more opportunities. Now, in terms of my own personal affinity and friends and people that I know very well and in close relationships with, that's in Freetown, Sierra Leone. And so for me, those were the three potential options. I chose Accra, Ghana, because I needed somewhere that I had already been and that I knew that it was less likely that I would have to worry about scams and other things that are inherently a part of life, no matter where you are. But there are places that have a higher propensity for those things. We'll put it that way. So any of you who are out there who, you get commission checks in your job, you've gotten a raise recently, I implore you to live within your current means under your current income and take that funding and invest it in buying land on the continent. That is the number one most critical thing that you can do. And this advice is not just coming from me. This is coming from a mentor of mine who had a significant amount of land in Ghana and was buying more land in Sierra Leone. And that's one of the things he recently passed, but that was one of the things that he would always say to me. He would say to me, you know, Joe, in your 30s, and at the time I was still in my 30s. I've now crossed over the hill. I'm in my 40s now. But at the time, he would say to me, Joe, you should be broke right now. You should be spending all of your money buying land. Now that comes with stipulations, right? Or, there's obviously you don't want to just blindly buy land, right? You want to ensure that people own it. You go through the proper processes to ensure that you're acquiring it properly and that it is actually yours. You want to fence the land to make sure that people can't encroach on it. There are things that you need to do, which I talk about on this platform. I also do personal consulting for people if people want to consult with me directly, especially if as it pertains to Ghana or Sierra Leone. And then I have partnerships or people that I could, put you in touch with, like if it's Kenya, if you're planning to move to Kenya. But you know, um, these were things that I just wish I knew when I had the cash previously, especially because at the end of the day, time is the most valuable commodity you have, and it is a finite resource, right? And so what I mean by that is, we just lost 22 minutes in this live stream, right? Time is going and you can't get it back. And so 5 years ago, I had the cash, but I didn't have the knowledge. And then for that subsequent 4+ years, I started to gain the knowledge and didn't have the cash. And so, people say, I wish I knew then what I know now. I'm trying to do for you that, give you the know now so you don't so you don't say, I wish I knew then. And so I say, move on it. If I was just talking to someone recently who mentioned to me they have relationships with people in Tanzania, actually today. And she had mentioned that a few years ago, people told her to buy land, and the places that she could have bought land have more than quadrupled in value in the 3 or 4 years since she had been going. And this is in Paje Beach, Zanzibar, Tanzania. Um, and when we were talking, I was thinking to myself, man, I had the exact same problem you did. But she had mentioned that at the time she may not have had the finances yet. Um, so I say that everybody does this when they get raises, and I did it too. I 1 year ended up getting a $40,000 a base salary raise. I know that sounds crazy. It's very unusual. It never happens to anyone. I get it. But I had somebody reporting to me that made $30,000 more than me. So that obviously they had to make some changes. Can you imagine somebody reporting to you that makes $40,000 more than you? So when I had that raise, you know what I did? I moved out of this apartment that I'm in right now, and I moved into a luxury apartment that was $3,500 a month. And I've told people this story throughout history, especially when I was living on the continent, and I'm sure people would look at me like, yeah, right. You were paying $3,500 a month in rent, and now you live here and you're broke. There's no way, right? And it was funny, the skepticism that people would have. And I understand it, because I made the choice to move to the continent because I was working to learn, not to earn. And so, I was working to gain all of these valuable insights that I have now. And now I'm reinvesting the cash that I'm making now that I'm back in the United States. But yeah, I was paying $3,500 a month in rent. And when you're moving into an apartment, you have to pay first and last month, sometimes also a security deposit. So I would put that kind of money down, and imagine had I just stayed in this apartment where at the time I think I was paying about $900 in my half of the rent. That $2,900 per month could have been saved and or reinvested in all kinds of land, because I spent between $3,400 and $3,600 a month in rent from 2015 all the way through December of 2019. So you guys count up all those months and just think about how much money went to luxury building rent that could have gone into investing in land. Um, I get kind of personal sometimes. I usually don't talk about my income, and I can speak about it because that's a former income. That is not my current income. Also, I do not spend like that, nowhere near that. I'm not crazy. I learned my lesson. And so, now that I'm back in the US and I'm earning an income that is different than what I was earning in when I was living on the continent, I can now reinvest it. I now know how to deploy that capital, but I'm deploying the capital knowing that cement is way more expensive, mastic is more expensive, iron rods are more expensive, land is more expensive, labor is more expensive. Everything that I could have done with that same income, or well, I'll say the same income, but with the income I was making at the time, I could have spent differently. And so that is a lesson that I've learned. And I think is really just important for me to kind of give you that lesson. I've told people privately these stories, but I think it's time now that I'm far removed from all of it, right? Um, so John Clarkson says I had the same problem. I think that was having the knowledge and not having the finances, or probably even earlier than that, having the finances but not having the knowledge. P. Rowe says, that's how you go broke. That's my issue with us chasing the luxurious life. We waste money on clothes, cars, housing, etc., instead of humble life. Yeah. Everything has increased, but you still have to bite the bullet and invest. You're ahead of the game. At least you have land. Yeah, I mean, so and just to kind of recap the property that I do have, I'm not going to say where, but I have one area of 4 town lots. I have another area where I have 5 acres, and then I have another area where I have just under 2 town lots. Um, I'll say what country. This is in Sierra Leone, and so yeah, and come to think of it, I went to Ghana during the year of return in 2019, and I had cash. I mean, not on me at the time. I didn't bring it with me, but I had cash. And I could have at that point bought land in East Legon Hills for a fraction of the price that it costs now. And so these are all things that, like, now with that knowledge that I have, it's like everything sounds expensive now, but it's like, that if you wait 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, it will be ridiculously expensive. So do it now. Do it absolutely right now. And that's the biggest piece of advice I can give you. I mean, obviously I used hyperbolic language. I said what I regret. I actually don't really live with regrets. I think everything's a life lesson. But at those moments, there was some pain. There was definitely some pain. I mean, I think it was maybe about 8 months ago, a friend of mine told me that there was land on the beach available in 2019 for $20,000. And I was like, why didn't you tell me back in 2019? Like, why wouldn't you have told me that land was available? But I know even had she told me, I would have been too apprehensive because I would not have known what to do to buy the land, who to go to, how to buy it. I wouldn't have known what to do. I would have just, and it probably would have been encroached upon. Somebody would have, I probably would have had squatters. I would have had all kinds of issues because I didn't have the knowledge. So yeah. So yeah, I think that that's important to know that, now that you have the knowledge, and I'm expressing this to you guys, and I'm so passionate about it. I'm pleading with you guys to start to make these decisions because you guys are going to look back later. There'll be a time where you think about, like, there was that one time that guy, what's his name? That video. One time I was watching a live stream like 10 years ago. That guy was talking about buying land and how he lived with regrets and he should have. And you'll be looking back on that and be like, man, I should have bought land. Right now, you will be having that moment. There's going to be a moment of clarity where you're going to be like, you know what? He did say that. That guy, Joe, whatever his name is, he said that. And so I'm saying to you now, I'm saying it to you now. A couple of things people are saying: prices up, but quality is down. That is one way to look at it. We all have regrets with this. Don't fret. Blueprint says rods beneath specs and bricks as well. Well, that's in terms of like iron rods that go inside the house that you're building and the blocks that you're creating. John Clarkson says, "What? Okay, now Creole, you want to talk? Now I get for read you Creole. Okay. Wata we're not far from, go run past you, me brother. Okay, so this is a Creole old saying, which I don't know. Water that's not far from you or for you won't. I don't know. I don't know. I can't translate it. Sorry. I wasn't able to translate that. You got to write it in English for me, John. Sorry. But I would have been here too long. I would have gotten it, but like in the live stream world, you can't sit with it like I would any other time. I got reading comprehension issue, guys. You can't write in another language that's not my native language, and now I got to try to translate for the world to watch in a live format. I don't know, but I do appreciate the Creole though. But yeah, English, please, John. You gotta give me the English version. Um, but yeah, so yeah, that was what I wanted to talk about today. I really wanted to make you guys aware of that, and I wanted to talk about that. I think it's really important. And regardless of how you vote in November, I remember in 2016, I had a couple family members say to me, if this person wins, I'm leaving the country, and a couple of them did. Uh, and um, and I was like, wow, you guys just got up and left, and it seemed out of the realm of possibilities for me that I would ever move. And that was in 2016, and by the end of 2019, I was strongly considering it. And 12 months after that, I was fully on the continent, with no plans of moving back. And so things can change quickly in terms of your belief systems, whatever, whoever the president is, whether you care or not, or whatever it is that is going on in your life. Things can change quickly. And, it would always be good to have something that you can lean on. The thing is that you're gonna spend your money anyway. That's just we live in a consumer society. That's how we are as humans, especially those of us in the Black community. As you guys might have heard, dollar stays in our community. I think what it was 6 hours is what it is. And for every this is old stats, but from last time I heard this stat in 2008 or 2009, for every dollar we make as a Black community in America, we spend $1.25. And so those of you who are watching this and happen to fall into that category, you probably know what I mean. You probably have some credit card debt. You don't, so just keep that in mind, right? And so because we do that, I would like to use the opportunity with this platform to tell people what else they can do with it, because you're going to spend it anyway. iPhone 16 Pro Max. You know what I'm saying? That's $1,300. You could use that to invest somewhere else. That can be, $1,300 can go towards buying a powerful generator. And let me tell you something. As someone who had excess of thousands of dollars, when I could not buy $1,000 generator, or when I was looking at a ticket and I was like, how many months is it going to take me to have enough money to buy a ticket to go to this funeral I have to go to? Or, how am I going to be able to fix my laptop? These were all things that would have easily been solved had I spent that time, 2015 to 2019, buying land. That same $2,900 per month that I spend extra in rent. Had I just been spending that money buying land, I would not even be here right now back in the United States. I'd be on the continent with much more land and many income streams within the continent. Tony B has a question. What's up, Joe? How much is a town lot in Bow and Lungay area today? Ballpark figure at least. Hard to say. Hard to say. Lungay, I hear craziness. There was a woman who wanted to sell a town lot with a 60% finished house for $100,000. Now, that was the price she put out there. I'm not sure if anybody even wanted to buy it. And by the way, Lungay is, and I know it looks like it says Lungi, but in Sierra Leone, we say Lungay. I know. That is the peninsula where the airport is. And so because the bridge is coming far later, Many people have started to build and buy land in Lunge. There are communities, newer communities starting to pop up there. Bo, depends on where in Bo. If you're talking about the outskirts of Bo, you're talking about, the Bo Kenema Highway moving towards Kenema, out there. Sometimes you can buy a town lot, depending on where it is and how hard it is to get to. Sometimes you can buy a town lot for, like $500 for an entire town lot. I mean, town lots can go for 500. Now, most of the time, especially if you have your American accent, JC, they're not going to give you 1,000 for 500 for a town lot. It might be 1,500, but still 1,500 for a town lot. And maybe you buy a couple, and just hold on to it. But obviously, fence it. Ideally, you put a pambodi on it, put somebody in there as a caretaker just to ensure that nobody encroaches on your land and then nobody ends up squatting on it. But yeah, that's those are what some of the figures can be. But like I said, I mean, I know that's a wide range, right? I said $500 in outskirts of Bo, and then I also said up to $100,000, right, in Lunge. But this is just the nature of where we are today, and that's why it was so imperative to buy land. The best time to buy land is today, because you can't go backwards, right? You can never go backwards and buy in a better time. So right now is the best time. So today, so the best time to do is today. And so yeah, so the ballpark figures, I hope that helps. I mean, it's hard to really answer that question because of the inflation. And one thing I will say about Sierra Leone, so Sierra Leone and Ghana have similar problems but different reasons. And this is a little bit anecdotal, a little bit about what I know just in the news. And because I was caught flat-footed during the financial crisis, I pay attention to things that don't seem like they connect. Okay. So, for example, quick detour to get you to why I'm going to tell you what I'm going to tell you. I remember reading the newspaper. Yes, I'm old enough that I used to read the newspaper. So I remember reading the newspaper and seeing this company I never heard of called Lehman Brothers laying off 250 employees in a weekend. I was like, damn, that's a lot of people in New York, right? And you see people crying with their boxes and it's a front page. I'm like, I don't know what that is. And then I remember hearing something about subprime credit cards and blah, 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 blah. Just words. These are just words to me. Um, and and I didn't realize that what I was doing in my actual job day to day was going to be directly impacted by the financial crisis, because I was doing the Money Tree. Montel Williams was doing ads for the Money Tree, and so we were running campaigns for the Money Tree. Or was it Lending Tree? I don't know what it was, but whatever Montel Williams was doing, we were offering credit cards to people with lower credit, and I didn't know it was under the subprime credit card thing. There were mortgages being offered in some of the campaigns that we were running, right? In my job, and I was making them like $900,000 a month, right? So I'm like, I'm crushing it for this company. I was 25 years old. I was making a little bit of money at that time. I'm excited. One day I get called into an office and they're like, listen, Joe, love, you're a great guy. Love working with you. I hate to do this, but we got to let you go. And then subsequently they let go like 90% of that staff, right? Now I say that to say this: had I been paying attention, I would have seen what was happening in the financial crisis was actually going to happen to me, but I saw it as two separate things. Now that leads me to this discussion about how I pay attention to markets. So Ghana, obviously the year of return made it cool to go to Ghana instead of, Tulum, which was a thing for a little while, right? Tulum was the spot, or a lot of people would say parts of the Caribbean. There was always a new area in the Caribbean people would try to throw out there, like to stunt, Instagram videos and stuff to say that they went there. And people would always be excited to say, I've gone to this place. Ghana has become the new spot, right? And so what that means is there are industries coming out of that, right? So people now who are going there are like, wow, I'm seeing a bunch of people here. I need to set up shop here to be able to capture some of those dollars, right? So whether that's people doing a PR firm, which is an incredible PR firm, there's a video I'm going to put out on that later, based there locally, or that's someone who is deciding to start developing land. I have a friend, a couple of friends who has a good friend of theirs who's developing a ton of land. I just posted some videos about Migrating Culture Crossing, which is, about 2 hours outside of Accra, and how, he has 200 acres of land that he's building on. people are going to begin to capture some of this and get out ahead of this. When that happens, that's going to be a large influx of income coming into the country, which means now that there's going to be more demand for already limited supply, which means that those people can raise their prices, right? They can raise their prices for things. So that means that everything starts to go up in price. So that's what's happened in Ghana. Sierra Leone is a little bit different. Many factors that can go into the inflation in Sierra Leone. I will speak to the ones that I think, I'm just trying to think of how I want to talk about some of these things. Okay, just to keep it safe, I'll just say this. There are illicit industries that happen through Sierra Leone. And I say this because I'm not involved in it at all, but there are things that happen, right? As you guys might know, trafficking to Europe has to go through somewhere, right? And so a lot of times it goes through West Africa, put it that way. There are documentaries about it. Just watch a documentary. That's how I know about it. BBC I and all these other documentaries about this stuff. These people have cash that they did not work hard for. But you know what these people do? They rent apartments for their girlfriend, for their wife, for their second girlfriend, or for themselves. And so what that does is that, again, increases the demand where supply has not increased, right? So those same people who had houses or places to rent, their prices go up. And so, and there have been other influxes of people coming to Sierra Leone as well. So I'm not just going to say it's the illicit activity that's led to that, but how do you have a house that's a 5-bedroom house that's $700,000 that these folks at the Dream Atlantic Garden Villas, that was the minimum price that they were selling these houses for. In a country like Sierra Leone, how else can you explain a house can be $700,000 or a 5-bedroom house is $500,000 further on the peninsula, right? And so, how else can you explain that except people who didn't work hard for the money have extra cash, and we're talking about cash societies where they can spend that cash on buying and renting. And so why I say that is to let you guys know that the prices are up and they're going to continue to go up. And it's going to sometimes sound crazy how expensive certain things are going to be. But that also tells you that if you get in now, 10, 15, 20 years, however long, if you want to leave it for your children, 40 years from now, can you imagine the differences in the price? One more story I'll tell on land acquisition and land growth. A friend of mine who lives in Ghana, her uncle bought a bunch of land in East Legon in the early 2000s, or maybe the late 90s. And at the time, East Legon didn't even feel like part of Accra. It was like it kind of felt more like the outskirts of Accra, Ghana, because most of what was happening in Accra was happening more like in the Osu area, cantonments areas. I don't even know if they were called that, but in those areas. Now, people told him, you're wasting your time and your money buying this land. Now, do you know that the company that I worked for was renting a building on this guy's land? Many buildings, many companies were renting on this guy's land. And now this guy is obviously very wealthy because he made a lot of land acquisitions. And so I say that to say, you don't have to buy right inside the capital city. You can buy a little bit outside the capital city or any major city in many of these countries, because the cities always expand. They always expand because people get priced out of living in those cities. So, you kind of want to just be like the toll gate on the way to people spending money. You know what I mean? Just, collect it. We got some people in from Twitch. Diggs BTW7. Shout out to you. Hey, what's up? What is up, Diggs? Let other people on Twitch know that I'm live streaming, and I live stream every Monday because we don't get a ton of people on Twitch following and watching. So we need the Twitch. We need to get that Twitch audience. I'm trying to be the mature Kai Sanat. Blueprint says, would you recommend building a short-term house to have a place to stay while visiting Salon, or wait to build my long-term house? Started a few new businesses there. That's a great question. Blueprints. Well, first of all, Blueprint, I definitely think you should do a consulting session with me So you can email me at authenticafricanlife@gmail.com and we can set up a consulting session. I do charge for those consulting sessions, but I will say this for free. I definitely recommend building a guest house on your property first, because depending on how much cash flow you have, it's easier to build a 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom guest house that you can stay in while you're working on your larger house. It's easier to build that faster to move in, and then you can stay there for longer periods of time. So you're not staying in a hotel. This is not an original idea from me, although this is what I did. This actually came from a cousin of mine who was building a 5-story multi-family complex. This house is incredible, but it has taken, I think, 15 years at this point to build. Um, and so he's been living in what was originally considered a boys' quarters or a servants' quarters, your house help. He basically made it so that it was comfortable for him, and he moved into that. And he had been living in that on his property for the entire time. Every time he would come to Sierra Leone, months at a time, he would be able to stay there. And I did the same thing, right? So I built a 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom guest house on the property. And now that we are building the main house, I can go stay in the guest house, which I did this last trip to Sierra Leone, and which I will do on the next trip to Sierra Leone. And I don't ever have to pay for a hotel unless I decide I want to. I don't have to pay for a hotel ever again. And so that is what I definitely recommend. So that's a great question, Blueprint. And that is definitely what I recommend. But here's what I recommend you do first. This is free for everybody, and this applies everywhere. Okay? Everywhere in Africa. You buy your land, you set up your beacons, you put up a fence around your land. Now, depending on the country, determines the style of fence. Now, what we call a fence in Sierra Leone, and I think they call it a fence in Ghana, is actually a cement wall. In Nigeria, too, I think they call it a fence, too. It's a cement wall. You want to put either barbed wire around the top or electrical wiring around the top, and it needs to be at least 10 feet high. That is just what everybody recommends you do. You never know what can happen. You want to stave off the outsider, so you definitely want to do that. The other thing is, I definitely recommend you take it a step further. You find out from a trusted source someone who can be a caretaker for you, who can be on your land, who just is making sure people aren't ransacking your stuff. And you want to build what we call in Sierra Leone a pambody, PANBODY. It is a semi-permanent or just a non-permanent structure that is made out of tin pans. They're also called shanty houses. So like if you think about Latin America, these shanty houses in Brazil and stuff like that, you can build something like that on your property and have your caretaker live inside that. You do those two things first. You fence off your property. Make sure you put on a gate on there, a gate that that you want to use, and you can lock and all that stuff. I recommend a sliding gate instead of one that opens in and out, because that takes up too much space. If you have a sliding gate, it takes up no space. So that's just another piece of free advice. And so I definitely recommend you do that, and I definitely recommend you put a pambodi on your property or shanty house and have a caretaker. Then I recommend you build a guest house for yourself. So whenever you're going to the country, you can go stay there. And you'll also get a feel for what it's like to live there. Like that is really important, right? Because you're staying in hotels and stuff. They got 24-hour electricity. They got hot water. They got all the things. Food is easy to find. You also got to consider, if you live in a food desert, you may not even notice that if you're staying in hotels and you're just going to visit your property when they're working on it. The other thing is, people act very differently when you're right inside. People aren't going to start throwing stuff around if they know you're inside, and you can come outside and like, hey, what are you doing? Right? So that's the other reason why I think while you're constructing your main house, it's good to be staying in the guest house. Good question. Lots of free insight. That's the kind of insight I give on my consultations. So again, if you want a consultation or if you want to support the channel, you see the scrolling, you see the ticker scrolling across the bottom of your screen there. You can email me at that email address, authenticafricanlife@gmail.com. Or if you want to support the channel, you can hit me up on Cash App or on Zelle. All right, cool. So Sierra Cam channel says, hi, always good to hear from you. Well, shout out to you. Thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Kwame says, hey, Joe and everyone. What's up, Kwame? Tony says, I'm ready to invest, but not sure about the future of the president. I'm a citizen and about to go back, but I'm a little bit apprehensive right now. At the risk of saying, okay, I don't know which president you're speaking of. I don't know if that's the president of Sierra Leone or the president of these United States. Here's what I will say. Here's what I will say. In general, the countries we've discussed, as long as you follow the proper protocols, you're okay to buy land and should not expect that it will be taken from you in any way, shape, or form. But you have to follow the proper protocols per that country. That no shortcuts, no shortcuts. In many cases, that means you're probably going to have to hire a lawyer. Lawyers are expensive in these countries. They take cash and they charge you what seems like American dollars, like $2,000 to draw up some paperwork. Maybe I can tell you from firsthand experience. So, I just think these are certain things that sometimes are going to be important for you to put in place and make sure you do. But yeah, I definitely think you should buy land. But of course, in one breath, I say, do it now, like right now. But also at the same time, that's if you know that you can do it and you have the proper insight and information. If you don't, you need to go and visit. Make sure you have people that you know that operate with some sense of integrity, that got information that you need and that can help you through the process and or support you while you're not there. I have 3 different people who from time to time just drive by, try to see what's going on. They don't go inside the property, but they drive by, they check, they let me know what they've heard or what they see. There's a lady in the neighborhood that just walks around. She's one of these ladies that walks with her hands tied behind her back like this. And she's always paying attention, seeing what's going on, seeing what the contractor's doing, seeing what her workers are doing. I have my caretaker on site, so that it assures me a little bit more, even though the contractor that I have today, I think is really good. And the best one I've seen so far. I also understand that, he's not going to be there every day. And so that means that sometimes there are going to be workers that are there who may not be as trustworthy. And so you just want to make sure you have people who can find people. Check this out. My previous contractor, he would send people in and out of my site, and he wouldn't be there, right? And one of his workers was married to the house help of the person I mentioned earlier that was my mentor. So his house help's husband was one of the workers with a contractor. And that contractor tried to steal a bag of mastic. How do I know? Well, he was seen at the very last second while exiting the property with the bag. And so she was watching to see if he was going to come back, and he never came back, right? So I call the contractor. The contractor says, oh, he called them, whatever. So then I called the mutual friend, the friend of mine, the mentor, who this contractor was working for him too. And so the guy, made all kinds of excuses, was crying, forgive me, but he did bring back the bag of mastic. But it was only because somebody was on site and saw it. Now, he probably thought, looking at that JC. I know they watch me, Seth. You're not going to wait to happen. And he probably just thought in his mind, because I'm a JC, speak with my American accent, he's thinking he's not going to miss a bag of mastic. You know how much money this whole thing was costing me? Every single penny needed to be watched. And so, yeah, it hurt that he was trying to take that one bag of mastic. So I definitely recommend you guys have a caretaker on site. African Superhero seems to think that this is helpful. Blueprint also says it's helpful. Sierra Cam channel said, please, do you know a trustworthy company used to buy land in Bo? Trustworthy company? I don't have a company, but I know somebody who sells land in Bo. So I could help with that. the 5 acres that I bought was not the only land that that person and that family had. And so I can help with that, but that I do not disclose publicly. That is something you would have to do a consultation with me on. So email that email that is scrolling across your screen, and we can set up a consultation and I can talk you through it. Because that's definitely going to have to be a one-on-one discussion, because I need to know what you're trying to buy, et cetera, et cetera. And then I can reach out to him and talk to him about the land. I can tell you it's legit because he is a distant family member, and as I mentioned, 5 acres of land was acquired from him just last year, and I'm so glad that I did. 5 acres of land. I mean, I'm so happy for that. But it wasn't alone. I didn't have it all, so I needed help. So, if I'm just being honest, Tony V says urban sprawl is happening around all the cities across Africa. Buying in the outer areas is the smart thing to do after you do your research. Okay, I like validation of points that I make. I like that. Yes, I agree with you 100%, Tony. And I like so that's the terminology, urban sprawl. Learn something new every day. Urban sprawl. Bill Nack says you should come back. Do I know you personally? Because I see there's a galaxy in your picture. Let me know who you are if I know you personally. I will be coming back. This is my stay in the United States is not permanent, but I'll be coming back with a whole different perspective, and it will be very different when I come back full time. But in the meantime, I'm going back frequently. Like I'll be back in December. I'll be back probably three times next year. I was thinking I'll go once a quarter, but because I always leave in January, it doesn't make sense to go back in March if I'll be back in April. So I'll probably be doing, the December into January, coming back in April, then coming back sometime during the rainy season over the summer, and then coming back in December again. But that seems to be the case. I'll probably do like August. I'll probably do April, August, December. That'll likely be the plan. April, August, December. And then December into January. That seems to be what my plan is going to be over the next year. That's all contingent on a bunch of other things, but that's where it is now. Okay, Miss S says, hi, Joe. It's been a while since I caught your live question. If you had land in both Ghana and Sierra Leone, which would you develop first, especially if you were looking to build rentals and a home? Great question, Miss S. And if you do, ballin'. Congratulations to you if you have land in both places. This is a great question. So, to answer your question, I would, and I hate to say it, but I would develop land in Ghana first. I would develop in Ghana first. And here's why. You'll be able to rent. You'll be able to rent for more money in Ghana. And you can get a faster return on your investment if you decided you wanted to sell it. That's just in general, right? Obviously that's all contingent on a number of different things, but I would do Ghana first. But also I would have done Ghana first with my own personal situations that I have going on. I had a housekeeper that was living really far away, and if I could have built a guest house or something on site for her to move into, I trusted her. And so I would have done that for her to move into it and have her live on site. And I would develop in Ghana first because Ghana has, December is crazy, and so you have an influx of people coming back. And so that's just easier for you. And you can take that rental income and reinvest it in Sierra Leone to start working on stuff in Sierra Leone. So that's what I would do. I operated the other way around because I happened to buy land before I was ever planning on moving. I bought land in 2019 at the end of 2018, going into 2019. I bought land, and so my plan was not even to move until like a year and a half later. So I developed in Sierra Leone first, but had I known, I probably would have bought in Ghana and developed there first, just because the rate of increase is happening so much faster in Ghana. So that's my thought. You guys, if you disagree, let me know. That's what the comments are here for. I definitely want to hear from you guys. Cash says, hi, glad to catch it live today. Good info. Oh, thanks, Cash. I appreciate it. Okay, so the comments are starting to dry up a little bit. Okay, so this is now you see me. Oh, now you see me. Now you see me. Now, is it supposed to be now you see me or is it now you see me? Anyway, please check your DMs. I will check my DMs. Now you see me. Um, with the prayer hands. Shout out to you. Elite Sports Life. Shout out to Chris Clark. I don't know if he's still here, but shout out to you. Somebody I went to high school with. SLKI, you still on? It's probably off by now. All right, cool. Any other questions? Oh, Joanna joined this one. Shout out to Joanna joining from the Facebook live stream. Joanna is my younger sister's name. Jasmine. Okay, shout out to Jasmine. Jasmine Johnson. That's my cousin. My cousin Jasmine joined on Facebook too. Oh, Dan Sowell's in here. Julian's in here. Shout out to Junie. Trini. Trini, what's up, Trini? In an era long ago, Trini was working at the university, Pace University. When I went to Pace University, the school I finally ended and got my degree from. He was working there. I'll leave it at that. Issa. Shout out to Issa Bangora, Liberian. I know so much more about your country now, Issa. And Dan is West African too. Dan, where are you from? Are you Liberian? You Nigerian? I remember Dan, you are West African if I'm not mistaken. Dan, so shout out to the Milts. Those are the Milts right there. Milton Hershey School, boarding school that I went to. For if you know, you know. Tim Black says, hello, Joe, from Jonesboro, Georgia. Shout out to you. Miss S says, thanks for the info. Yes, got land there in Aburi Hills too. And what you said is exactly what I thought about the return. Yeah, in Aburi, I mean, so the mentor I mentioned had a ton of land in Aburi. And he had like kind of like an Airbnb / hotel up there. I guess he still does have it. I'm sure the family is going to take it over. But Wodemaya used to stay there because he didn't want to come in. I know he has a house in in Accra now. But when he came to Accra, he would want to like kind of come in and out and get away from people, because obviously because he does YouTube, he's one of those people that people like to run up to and talk to and want to take videos of and stuff like that. And so he would go stay in Aburi, so he could get away. And it's like, it's like 45 minutes outside of Accra, so he could just go into Accra, shoot his content and get out of there and stay away. And so, you can basically build like a little getaway until the roads get better and the city of Accra just continues to expand. You'll be able to, that's my caretaker, as a matter of fact, calling me. You'll be able to, continue to just build that equity. Eventually it'll be something that you could sell or rent, and you'll be able to continue to increase that property value. I anticipate in the next 25 years, that property value is going to, exponentially grow. So you're doing the right thing. Aburi is probably where I'm looking as well. I'm also looking at East Lagoon Hills because it's a little bit closer. It's a little bit more expensive, but it's a little bit closer. And it's also... Hola, boy, they pan live. I guess I'll call you back. Yeah, you forget. You know, say they go live every Monday. Okay, I'll go call you back. Sorry, guys. I have to call him back. Okay, Tim Black says, are they working on power and internet in Sierra Leone? Great question. So to Tim Black, a couple things. Number one, yes, and yes, I guess. So in terms of the power, there has been hundreds of millions of dollars earmarked to Sierra Leone with specific stipulations. I'm not going to get into it all now, but it's over $400 million. That is from the United States and a organization called MCC. Also, China has agreed to $50 million specifically to Sierra Leone, and part of that is for technology infrastructure. I know they've been talking to Russia as well. Japan said they're going to give them 2 power plants. So there's a lot of conversation around power in Sierra Leone. Fingers crossed they get it right. As far as internet is concerned, Starlink has been there. And I know I'm not a fan of Elon Musk either. For those of you some people are. So for those of you who are fans of him, good for you. I read the biography, was a big fan, not so much anymore. That's my own personal business. That's up to you whether you like them or you don't. However, Starlink is it. And I'm speaking from other people who've told me this. So a friend of mine told me her brother has Starlink. Another friend of mine has a close friend, and they're getting Starlink. Starlink had been in Sierra Leone, one of the few West African countries it's available in, had been in Sierra Leone for over a year or almost 2 years. But as of like recently, the government of Sierra Leone has officially approved Starlink, and now they're working to approve resellers, retailers, and people who installers, I think is what they call them. I don't know what they're calling them, but there's those three categories, and they're saying they have to approve those three groups so that you can legally install Starlink in Sierra Leone. And yes, Starlink is very, very expensive. Correct. But if you want this clarity of internet, like what you're seeing with me now, Starlink is the only option. Now, if you so like for me, I'll give you an example. You know, I did a consulting gig while I was living in Ghana, and I did a consulting gig while I was living in Sierra Leone. And even though Ghana with Vodafone and MTN are better than what options are available in Sierra Leone, I had 4 options for internet in Ghana. I had a fiber router with Vodafone. I had a fiber router with MTN. So if MTN was my primary. If MTN went down, I went to Vodafone. If power went out, it would hop over to one of my MiFis. I had a Surfline MiFi and a Vodafone MiFi. That's just how I had to live. In Sierra Leone, I had I was going to be installing Orange, but I never got around to it. I might just install Starlink. Well, I don't even need to do that. And then I also had what's this thing called? I can't even remember what the name of the company is. Whatever. It's AfriCell. AfriCell MiFi. I also had a friend allow me to borrow their Orange MiFi. Always ran into issues. So, and especially because I'm uploading and downloading 30-minute videos, live streams, you know, videos for social media managers. I'm getting AI videos created by editors for me. This all requires logging into Google Drive, downloading stuff to be able to watch it in Google Drive, all these things. It requires a really strong and steady internet. And what I've seen so far is subpar in both Ghana and Sierra Leone for the way I was doing things, especially because I was going on Zoom calls a lot. I was streaming a lot. And so I found it challenging. So for me, I'm thinking Starlink is going to be the way to go. But yes, it is over $100 per month, ladies and gentlemen. But if you're in Sierra Leone and you want fast internet, it's going to cost you over $100 per month. Same thing. So, you know, it is kind of the trade-off you have to make. But yes, Tim Black, you're right. Starlink is quite expensive. They do have an RV option that's like $60 per month. So like for people who live in RVs, it's kind of like a portable unit. So there's something that's a little bit cheaper. I just don't know if you can put the RV unit in a house. I don't know how that works. The installation, all that kind of stuff. I'm not really clear. These are things that I'm still unaware of. So I'm not really too sure. But yeah, I mean, I definitely recommend that you go the route of Starlink if you have the budget. If you don't have the budget, then you're just going to have to do fiber at home, whatever country you're in. And then you're also going to need to buy a MiFi from one of the brands that is the best in country. So as I mentioned, in Ghana, MTN is known for the best internet coverage. From what most people would tell me, some people said Vodafone was better whatever neighborhood they were in too. So you just want to ask people in your neighborhood, they'll be able to tell you. And then I use Surfline MiFi as well, just because I just needed something that was a completely different company, just in case 2 go down, one of them may still be working, you know. And in Sierra Leone, AfriCell, Orange are the main ones that people tend to use from MiFi. QCell is another one, but I always had challenges with QCell. And you know, my people who work at QCell, you know who you are. I used to tell you guys all the time that give me a that QCell. Okay, cool. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? We're at an hour and 10 minutes. This keeps happening. Excuse me. We're at an hour and 10 minutes. So I want to hear from you guys. If there's anything else, any other questions. Tim Black asked a very open-ended question. What do you think about Liberia? Well, I will say this: 25% of my genetic makeup, from what I understand, came through Liberia, and I realized that I don't even know technically. I guess Crow is one of the indigenous tribes of Liberia, right? So I'm part Liberian. But what do I think about Liberia? I don't know much about Liberia. I was stalling. I don't know much about Liberia. I'm sorry. I just know that Liberians are always on the flight with me on the way somewhere from Sierra Leone, because there's always a stop in Liberia, or it's a stop from Liberia through to Europe. So, um, and I've known some good Liberian folks. One Liberian I know is actually living here in Jersey now. He's moved back. He was living in Sierra Leone for quite some time. Um, but I don't know much about Liberia. I know they have a new president. But I'm like, if you're a Liberian, I would say always build back home. In terms of infrastructure, I got a little bit of insight into it. I mean, I think it's a developing nation, much like Sierra Leone. There are still so many challenges there. As far as I understand, Liberia is a lot like Sierra Leone in terms of it being analog. So whereas Ghana is a little bit, Nigeria are a little bit more digital, right? So what I mean by that is, in Ghana and Nigeria, you have Uber. Senegal as well. I think you have Uber as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. No, you may not have any Senegal. I don't know. But look, Ghana, Nigeria have Uber. So, and you also have Bolt, which is a competitor. And Bolt also has food delivery. Then you also have a company called Glovo, and Glovo has food delivery. And you also have Jumia food delivery. And so these are all things that you can find in Nigeria and in Ghana that makes life a little bit easier. Excuse me. Sorry. As far as Liberia and Sierra Leone is concerned, from my understanding, most of it is analog. That means that you have to go and get your food. There aren't as many delivery services. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know from the conversations that I've had, that is those are some of the similarities between Liberia and Sierra Leone. So if you know anything about Sierra Leone, from what I understand, Liberia has very many similarities. Task Force Solo says, can you talk a bit about the new Salon flights? Are you talking about the flight that goes to Gatwick Airport? I don't know. These British names are weird to me, but that's what you're talking about, right? The Gatwick Airport. What is it? Salon Air? Is that what it's called? Sierra Leone Air? I had it open in a window. Um, yeah. Okay. So Task Force, you're saying, yeah. That's all I know. They say flights will be less than $1,000 round trip. That's what they say. Sierra Leone had an airline previously, and like all good things must come to an end. So I hope that they'll probably rent 737 or something smaller from and they'll paint it, but they'll have the cash. I know there's a lot of money coming in from like outside sources, World Bank, etc. So hopefully they can take that and put it into the airline. I don't know how often it'll be flying and all of that. I can do a separate live about that if you guys want. Sorry, I don't have a lot of the details in front of me right now. The article was open on a tab somewhere, but I also have like 1,000 tabs open, so I don't know where it is. But I'll read the article. I'll let you guys know, and I'll come back and do a live stream about that at some point to talk about it. But it's a big deal. Doesn't impact me because I don't fly through London. But maybe if I could find a cheap flight to London and then the round trip to, it might make sense. I don't know, but I don't know. It doesn't necessarily impact me. But there are a lot of Brits that go to Sierra Leone in November, isn't it? Right. So they're the ones who will benefit the most from it. And so yeah, but that's all I know right now is that Chinorba, the Minister of Information and Civic Engagement, did a press conference immediately after the announcement mentioning that they're going to try to make round trip tickets less than $1,000, which I thought was great. And if you're already in country, if you're from the UK and Gatwick, you can just find your way home from Gatwick to wherever you live. It's like for me, I fly into Newark. I can find my way from Newark into Brooklyn, no problem. So Bill Nack says, I don't like Uber and Bolt. I prefer to take KK in Freetown. Okay, now you sabi. No, I mean, for sure. I mean, if you prefer to take KK, cool. Me, I don't prefer to take a KK. I prefer Uber and Bolt because it's always negotiating prices. I prefer that the price is already standardized. Boom, that's what it is. It does challenge you to work on your Creole though, if you have to take KK or bike. Okay, Tim Black says, the Sierra Leone price land in dollars like a lot of African countries do. It depends on the person selling the land, because that's the person who's pricing it. Many times it's priced in leones, but it depends. If it's an American, they're probably going to try to get dollars. They're probably going to say dollars. It all depends. And in Ghana it was the same thing. It's all dependent on who they are. I mean, my landlord was very wealthy in Ghana. They were Ghanaian. They owned a flower business, and they charged in dollars. And then, like, anytime I wanted to buy or pay for something, I'd have to convert it to Ghana CDs, and then I'd have to wire them the money, the whole thing. What's up, Tiggy? Shout out to Tiggy. Tiggy's in the building. Okay, Task Force Solo says, where would you see yourself retiring when that time comes? Is Salon an option for you? Yes. So in the next 15 years, my goal is to retire from doing anything that requires me to have to think about it and say, okay, fine, I'll do it. So what does that mean, in case that's unclear? Of course, I'll still be working into my late years because I want to keep my brain going, but it's gonna only be things that I care about doing. So if that's, things like this, if I'm still doing content, or that's speeches and doing talks, those are the things that I would love to do. I like to talk, so you guys know that about me. So to answer your question though, because that was not the question. Do I ever see myself retiring in Sierra Leone? I do. That's as of right now. That could be Sierra Leone, it could be Ghana, it could be Nigeria. Let's see as I spend more time in more countries how I feel. But Salon is my home, right? And so, and I have a house there that will be comfortable, that that I will have stayed in many, many times by the time retirement age comes. And I'll probably have many other houses and land. And so, that I think where I have land and what I experience in the next 15 years will determine that. But it'll likely be Sierra Leone. My goal is to retire, like I said, in the next 15 years max. And so if that's the case, Salon right now feels right. It feels right. That's a good question. I don't know if anybody's ever asked me that recently anyway. So yeah, Salon. I get for retire in Salon. All right. This has been a pretty well attended live stream. I see people from all across the board. We got people on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitch. Yeah. So shout out to all the people who join on my personal page on Facebook. That's why I started adding it. That's a good idea. All right. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? It's been an hour and 18 minutes. Oh, yeah. Tim. Yeah, look, Tim said it for me. Hit the like button, everybody. Yes. Tim said it. Hit that like button. Hit that share button. Share this with anybody you know who's thinking about moving to West Africa, who's in West Africa and planning to leave. And I had a conversation with somebody that I want to mention today, actually. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I was a bit judgmental when I first got to Ghana, and I saw people who had been there for a couple years before me and leaving, or people who came for 6 months and left. And I was judgmental. I was really judgmental, actually. And people were judgmental of me later on. And what I find is that, and somebody said this to me earlier, let's normalize people moving, learning, deciding to move back, but taking that knowledge and applying it back home. We should normalize that. People shouldn't feel like it's a failure. You should also not flex on people if you leave the country and be like, I'm going to Africa. Figure it out with that president you got over there. And then now you got to eat crow and come back, right? So let's just be clear on that. But if you do decide to make a move, it's okay to make the move back. I think, I think we shouldn't look at people as failures who decided to do that. I had friends who moved to Los Angeles, and they knew people who weren't willing to move back to their home city of like Detroit or somewhere else because they always felt like they'd be a failure because they were on the way out. They were like, "Ha, you guys are stuck in Detroit. I'm moving to LA." Then they get to LA and they're like, "Whew, man, LA was hard. I got to go back to Detroit." And so, and that's just an example, but I just want to make sure that people don't take that approach if you decide to move to the continent. And the same thing for people moving the other way around. You know, there are a lot of Africans that move to the other continents. They move to the West and think it's going to be easy and they're going to make a lot of money, and they're having to move back. And when that happens, you know, you're seen as a failure, and it shouldn't be seen as a failure. Sometimes you go for a season or a reason, you learn, and you apply. And so that person who said that to me, shout out to YOA, who said we should normalize people moving back. And it shouldn't be held with the stigma of like failure. Um, Kwame says life full of ups and downs. It sure is. You know, when they talk about people think entrepreneurship looks like this, right? Entrepreneurship really looks like this. Going back, stop, and then eventually it gets to this, right? And so I think that that's just life in general too. That's just how you should look at life in general. And so if that is how it works and you know it already, then you'll be okay with having to make a decision like this. I wasn't happy having to move back to the United States. I'm being perfectly honest. I had my 40th birthday / welcome back party, and I realized that my energy was a bit off at that event. A bunch of people I hadn't seen for a long time, and everybody's like, "How does it feel to be back?" And I was like, "Well, I don't want to be back, but I had to come back." And that's like you're at a party. Like that's not the way to respond to people at a party. But at the same time, it's true. It's like I was never planning on moving back, but I had to move back in order to really to be able to make some income and deploy that capital properly. And because of that, first floor of the main house will be done in half the time it took me to build, less than half the time, in like a third of the time it took me to build the two bedroom guest house. In a third of the time, the first floor of the main house will be built. And that's in large part to do with the fact that I've decided to move back to the States, and I can put a significant amount of money into getting this house done. I mean, we got steps, we got an escape route, we got a bridge between the two houses now, the main house and the guest house. There's a lot that we built in this time. And I do believe that in December I'll be able to have a housewarming party, which I'm excited about. I do believe I'll be able to have a housewarming party, and I'll be able to invite some people over, just to kind of see the space and just like let everybody kind of see it. Yeah. So if not that, then I'll have to do it in April of next year when I come back again. Maybe I'll have furniture and stuff in there. But yeah. So yeah, that is what I have to say about that. Tiggy says, so true. If I tell you the amount of hurdles I have dealt with your people in free hey Tiggy, now you people are now we own people. Anyway, I got a book another consultation with you. Yes, please. Yeah, book one. Let's do it. Let's do it, Tiggy. Let's do another consultation. Kwame says, I'm still stuck in the UK. Hopefully can reach Africa next year on a long-term basis. It's not easy. Not easy at all. At all, at all, at all. It's not easy. By the way, that's something we all West Africans say. It's not easy. In Salon, we can say no easy, oh, no easy. And I think in Nigeria, I think they say no easy. And then the response afterwards in Ghana, they say it's not easy. And the response always afterwards is at all, at all. It's not easy at all, right? So somebody says it's not easy, the other person says at all. That is one thing I've noticed as a common thread between those three different countries. I know I only mentioned those three countries, but those are the three countries that I know most people from and I've been to, and I spent significant amount of time in. All right, Task Force Solo says, I'm recently contemplating acquiring one of the Taft Salon houses and turn it into an Airbnb. Your thoughts? My thoughts. First of all, I love the idea of what they're doing with Taft. I think it's great. I love that they're building a housing development. My thoughts on the Airbnb is this. If I'm not mistaken, it's in John Obey. Let me do something for you guys. let me do something for you guys, because while we're here, we might as well. I'm going to pull up a map for you guys, so you guys can see something. Um, so so you guys can see. Uh, because I think it's helpful to get context, right? To see what we're talking about. So when it comes to doing an Airbnb, um, you want to be close proximity to all things, right? Do I need to make this bigger? Is it too hard to see? Let's zoom in a little bit. Let's zoom in. But if we zoom in more, you can't even see it all on the map, which should tell you everything. Now, I don't know how hard it is for you guys to see, but it's saying by car, it's 1 hour and 2 minutes away. John Obey Beach. Now, if I understand correctly, TAF is building near this John Obey area. So why do I say buying here and building here would be great to buy, and you can do an Airbnb. I would just not anticipate that it will be full more than 5 or 6 days out of the month. Maybe even one day a month. Maybe even sometimes every other month it's 5 or 6 days. And the reason why I say that is because it's hour and 2 minutes away from Central Freetown. That is a long way to drive to go to your Airbnb. So people are there in December. Nobody's going to want to come in and out of John Obey to come all the way back to Freetown for the events at night, events during the day, etc. So when somebody tells me they want to buy there, I say definitely buy. If you have the money to buy and you don't want to go through the process of building, then buy and hold, and you can Airbnb it. You can do long-term rentals, whatever. I'm not saying that people won't Airbnb it. I'm just saying if you're thinking like, "Ooh, I'm going to have this place filled 20 days out of the month," it's unrealistic to believe that, considering its distance from Freetown. So, and the reason why I say that, like, Godrich to me feels far from Freetown. When I would go to Godrich, I had a friend who lived in Godrich, and I'm like, "Oh, you're all the way out in Godrich. It's going to take forever to get out there." You know, I actually have another friend who lives in Godrich too, and it's not that far, but it just feels like, okay, you got to go up to the peninsula, and and so it just feels like it's a distance, and that's Godrich up here. John Obey is all the way down here, right? So I hope that answers your question. I don't want to say anything disparaging about TAF because I like what they're doing. I just want to be realistic in terms of what you can anticipate. Um, so I hope that that's helpful and gives you a little bit of insight. And so also I was talking to somebody who had mentioned that they saw 5 town lots available in Bury Town for like $10,000, and I was like, oh man, Bury Beach. And then I looked at it, I was like, oh, no wonder why it's been on the market for 12 months. Because even though it's a great buy, look how far away it is. Right? So, you're all the way down here. Ooh, it's here. Bury Beach is here, and Freetown is all the way up here. So, yeah. Let's see it. Sorry, that's one way. The other way, it's an hour and 3 minutes. Okay. And now, and there's always two ways you can go. You can go this other way around to Waterloo and all the way down Allentown, etc., or you can just drive all the way up the peninsula. It's basically the same amount of time. You get 15 minutes more if you go around this way than if you go this way. But if you're in Bury Beach, maybe it's faster to go that way. Kent is another place. They're building sustainable housing in Kent. I went to Kent. Love what they're doing with the sustainable housing that company's building in Kent. And I can't remember the name of the company, so forgive me, guys, if I've gotten it wrong. But I mean, I love what they were doing. I mean, it's dope what they're building and everything. It's sustainable housing. You're supposed to be able to live off the grid, all of that stuff. But that's obvious for people who aren't anticipating wanting to get into town, right? So things to think about. These are all things to think about, take into consideration. Uh, Fred Gibbs says, "LOL, I'm not investing in Sierra Leone." Oh man, well, that is your choice. Tony B says, "KKs can be a little hectic. I have a couple of taxi drivers that I contact when I get there. They are fair and trustworthy." Well, shout out to Tony. and the taxi guys that you have. Yeah, I mean, I think it's if you're used to an American spend, then taking a taxi around Sierra Leone, especially Freetown, is not too bad. It's when you have to rent a car and it's $100 a day. That's when it hits you. Like, whoa, how are you charging $100 a day? It's like you can rent a car for $20 a day in New York City. Well, that's an exaggeration. Like $40 a day in New York City, and I mean $100 a day in Sierra Leone. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. If you haven't already, hit that like button, hit that notification bell, subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Share this with anybody you know who's thinking about moving to Sierra Leone or Ghana, or even thinking about investing in land. Anybody who has regrets, anybody who you don't want to have regrets. Also, I'll say it again. If you guys want to support the channel, check the bottom of the screen as it's scrolling by. You can shoot us something on Zelle at authenticafricanlife@gmail.com, or you could shoot us something on Cash App at $authenticafrican. Also, if you want to set up a consultation session with me on conversations like this, something more specific to you and your needs, email me at authenticafricanlife@gmail.com. More than happy to do a session with you. Tiggy has done a session. Tiggy, you let me know what you think of the session, how it went. Aisha Ladan, who I interviewed last week about her situation on getting scammed. She also had done a consultation session. I used to do a PowerPoint where on screen, and I would show like what the quotes were from the consultations. But I've done about 17 consultations in a little over a year. I don't promote it that often, so sometimes people forget that I do them. But yeah, happy to do consultations for those who need them. All right. We are, I think, nearing the end of this thing. What do you guys think? Mr. London Boy for Life says, "What's good, Joe? Just joined." Well, it looks like I'm about to end this thing. Unless you got any questions. But what's up, Mr. London Boy for Life? It's been a while. It's been a while since you commented. I don't know if you're on here usually, but it's been a while since you commented. Who else has been here? Auntie Jean came through. Auntie Jean, what's up? What's up? What's up? Long time no see or hear from. I hope all is well with you in the UK. Mr. London Boy for Life says, "Are you in Sierra Leone?" No, I am in New York City. What you guys will notice, many of you guys know now, like what background is where. So like, if you see this seat, I'm probably gonna buy another chair like this actually and send it to Sierra Leone. But if you see like the streaming chair and you see that background with that bookshelf here, which is probably gonna go away, and that closet there, and those hats back there, and that Stevie Wonder, just know I'm in Brooklyn. I'm in Brooklyn, New York. When I get to Sierra Leone, I'm gonna be shipping a bunch of stuff. When I start going live there, you'll start to see a new background. It won't be the background you've been seeing for a while. And then anytime I go to Ghana, my background will be very different. Auntie Jean says she's good. Okay, good. Just at work watching. Well, thank you for watching, Auntie Jean. I appreciate your support. Auntie Jean is from Montserrat. If you guys are not familiar with it, look it up. All right. Mr. London Boy for Life says, "Would you ever reconsider moving back to Africa again?" So yeah, for sure. You missed this a little earlier, but I mentioned that I would retire back on the continent for sure. Not sure exactly where, but for sure we'll retire on the continent. That's an absolute for sure thing. Yes, nowhere else. Nowhere else is getting my retirement dollars in time. Africa. Just not sure where. Tassel says, "Thanks for the engagement. I had been away for a while, but was happy to rejoin again. Thanks for everything." Oh, you mean like in terms of watching the live streams and stuff? Well, thanks. Thanks for catching up with us. Thanks for watching. A couple things that I want to tell you guys. You know what? Let me do this too. Listen, I'm on a roll here. Why not? Right? Right now. While we're here and while you guys are all engaged, I do want to ask you guys to do something, which I don't normally do. on the live stream, but I'm going to ask you to do it today. I'm going to ask you, when this live stream is over, to go over to the YouTube channel. Okay, so we're on a road right now to get to 20,000 subscribers by the end of this year. I am 1,600 and change away from getting there. I need your help to get there. You know, I've hit many milestones in this journey, and the one that would mean the most to me is hitting the 20,000 subscriber journey, hitting the 20,000 subscriber number. It has been very, very difficult. Anybody who started a YouTube channel, you guys know this is so hard to stay consistent, and it's even more difficult to continue to go after you run into all kinds of challenges with monetization and strikes and all that kind of stuff. And it's been a difficult journey. It's not easy. It's been very, very hard. And so, but you guys have stuck with me through the process, and I want to thank you guys. And so I want you to check out some of the videos on the channel. Here I'm interviewing, I do a tour with Eric McNeil of his house, his houses at Migrating Culture Crossing. Here's some of my live streams. The videos that didn't get much love from you guys, which was surprising, was the Tanzania videos. So I went to Tanzania, did a lot of work editing these videos. You have no idea. So I definitely want you to check these out. Some serious work went into, to editing these videos. So, the Maasai warrior, controversial Maasai man, this one did really well. People seem to like that one a lot. It's now one of my top 4 videos, and I just posted it a month ago. And you see some of these other ones are 3+ years old. So, shout out to you guys for really watching that and engaging and supporting. But just come to the page. These interviews, not all of these are interviews on my channel. I did an interview with Vanessa Camby when I first moved, and she had just moved. And some other interviews I've done with other folks, Leslie Jones here. So these are some of the interviews that I've done. So you can check some of those out. My Life in Sierra Leone playlist, definitely check these out. Like, if you guys, so people always ask me, like, how can I find more videos about you? How do I learn about this and that and etc.? If you want to learn some Creole, man, if you see this Creole video, my Creole has improved tremendously since this video. But I definitely recommend watching this if you want to laugh and if you want to see how bad my Creole was a little over a year and a half ago. Just go ahead and watch that video. 10 things you need to know before coming to Sierra Leone. That's a pretty popular video of mine, and people tend to like to watch. So I would definitely recommend checking that out. Here's the video where I bought land, the 5 acres of land. So you can check that out, and we do a tour of the property. I do some real estate videos, so some of these are with interviews with folks on real estate, and then some of them are tours that I've done. I just did this tour recently of NK. Her apartment. She's somebody who I went to college with. She's a Nigerian who bought land, it's a Nigerian American who bought land in and condo in Accra, Ghana, and she has an Airbnb, a really nice Airbnb at Embassy Gardens in Cantonments. So that video is a pretty recent one. It was just 5 days ago that I uploaded that one. That seems to be getting some pretty good traction. So I definitely recommend you guys check that out. And then here's all my past live streams. You guys can watch those. Some of my Living in Africa vlog. I have a lot of shorts that I do now. These have like barely any views from today. It's embarrassing. 309 views. This is why I need you guys to support. I can't have 18,000 subscribers and 300 and 400 views. So come back and check out the page. I know I've been shadow banned from time to time because I was live streaming with African Stream, and they got kicked off of YouTube. So I do know that's affected me negatively in the algorithm. So I definitely say, make sure you guys come to the page. You guys hit this. Normally here it'll say subscribe, but since this is my channel, it won't say subscribe here. But hit the subscribe button, and make sure when you hit that subscribe button, you hit the notification bell so you're notified every time a new video comes out. But yeah, you can click on the thing that says videos, or you can click on the one that says shorts. On videos, it starts with the most popular ones, if I'm not mistaken. No, it doesn't. More recent ones, just all the recent ones. So here are all, go to videos, and just whenever you get a chance, just maybe just click on any one of these, and just watch them through. These videos took a lot of work, energy, effort to put together. So, I would really appreciate you guys supporting. All right, that's enough begging to get you guys to watch my videos. Um, but yeah, it's hard work. It's hard work. Um, Tony B says Africa is not for us all, not for all of us. Just got there and spend at least a month there. Oh, just go there, get there and spend at least a month there. Then you can make up your mind. Yeah, I think that's true. You got to spend some time there for sure. Mr. London Boy for Life said, would definitely love to move to Africa, but live in between the UK and an African country. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I do that. I do just that. Yes, yes, and yes. All right, a lot of engagement. It's been an hour and 40 minutes. Guys, I kept it going because you guys kept engaging. That's how I do. And because I thought I should. But I do have to present something to my CEO and chief strategy officer and chief revenue officer of the company I work for tomorrow morning. And I still have to work on it. I still have work to do on it. So I want to make sure what I present is top notch so that I can continue to live stream and continue to live here. So, and I don't lose my job. So, I want to thank you guys all for watching as usual. I really do appreciate it. I know sometimes I make, flippant jokes, offhand jokes, and I forget like I'm talking to you like I'm just having a conversation with someone. But I do really appreciate you guys and all the support we can get, I think would be really, really helpful if you can support. So, I do appreciate you guys stopping by. I appreciate the engagement, appreciate the questions. And I encourage you to encourage other people to tune in. I hear from people a lot that like you don't have enough followers for the amount of content and the amount of work you put into it. And I'm like, I know, but it just takes a long time to build the tribe. And you guys are here. Some of you guys have been here for a long time, coming back forever. Mr. London Boy for Life. Tiggy's been around for a while. Sometimes I see people hop in who've been in here since the beginning. Tim Black has been around for a while. Task Force Solo, I've been seeing you come back and forth. Miss S, it's been a while. But there's some of you folks that I've seen. Kwame's been a little while too. Some folks I've seen, and I'm like, man, you've been here forever. You've been coming since the beginning. So I thank all of you guys for joining, for supporting, for helping keeping the conversations going. Tiggy says, speaking of other YouTubers, I would love to see you link up with Woody Maya one day. That would be an awesome collab. Yeah, so I reached out to Woody Maya years ago when I first moved to Ghana to do my story. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to get him, but I did meet him in person and we did take a picture together. Me, him, and Miss Trudy before they were married. My friend was like, "You got to take a picture with them." I was like, "Ah, it feels like a groupie. I don't really want to take a picture." Like the only time I want to take a picture with someone who has status is if they say, "Hey, do you want to take a picture?" Because they see it as valuable to take the picture with me. I don't want to be that person that's like a groupie, like, "Hey, you want to take a picture?" Um, However, I was convinced to take the picture. So I did take it. I did take the picture, but I can't seem to find it right now. So unfortunately, I can't share it with you guys. But yeah, so that was in a Brie at Herman's house, actually. Yeah, so he was staying there, and he and Miss Trudy came down for breakfast, and we had an incredible conversation about all kinds of things Africa related. I mentioned to him I have a YouTube channel, and then I was working at Jumia at the time, and so it was a good conversation. We just never were able to keep the conversation going. I have his number or had his that number, but he never responded to me. Maybe as my channel grows, platform gets big enough, he might be like, you know what? Yeah, let me interview this guy. But as of right now, we haven't had it happen. All right, Mr. London Boy for Life says we appreciate your videos, Joe. Keep it up, even though I don't normally join the lives. I watch the normal videos you drop. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for watching those, and thanks for supporting. All right, guys, this has been a consistently steady flow of content, comments, etc. I want to thank you guys all for the engaging discussion. I am going to finish this presentation, and I will see you guys again. So no more Tuesday live streams right now with African Stream. I know it's been like over a month now. I'm communicating with them though, and I'm trying to figure out what we can do to get something back up. So for those of you who really enjoyed those, we're working on it. working on it. We'll see what we can do. So as of right now, it's just the 2 live streams. It's the Exposing Sierra Leone on Sundays. It's this live stream on Mondays. And so just expect that this coming Sunday, we're going to be talking about obesity in Sierra Leone. Not my idea, but we're going to talk about it. We're going to have some health experts on to talk about it. So that should be, if that's interesting to you guys, then I say join on Sunday to hear about that one. That's a controversial one. There will be some upset folks that we did that live stream. And so join in the conversation. We'd love to have you on. And with that, guys, I want to thank you all for watching. I will see you all on the next video.